So what do you think? No taxes on tips? Hi, my name is Levi, and this is the Tip You in the App Daily Drive. Today's Daily Drive is brought to you by Tonquin. With Tonquin, you're not going to pay taxes on tips because you don't get tipped. And the Daily Drive is brought to you by Rideshare.tax. It's fitting, we're talking about taxes today. And the Daily Drive is brought to you by Voom Rideshare Insurance. All right, first, let's hear it from our candidates.
It's called no tax on tips. No tax on tips. No tax on tips.
And eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm voting for whoever sits in this seat. So if my passenger wants Harris, I'm supporting Harris. And if my passenger wants Trump, I want Trump. So vote for whoever you want to vote for. This is more about the idea of the policy of taxes on tips and how that will affect us. Now, last year, I made $4,410 in tips. And my actual tax rate was 9.1%, which means that if there were no taxes on tips, my tax bill would have been $410 less. Not bad, right? The question is that a good policy? Well, from an Uber driver perspective, let me kind of lay this out. About 39% last year of all of my trips tipped. A little bit more than 1 out of 3, but less than half. And I have this theory that roughly a third of the people are always going to tip us. A third of the people, the passengers, will never tip. And then there's this third in the middle that would tip if they just remember. So I always try to find ways to get them to remember to tip, and that's what I talk about a bunch. But what happens, just kind of run through the scenario, if the government, the federal government says, hey, Uber driver, you don't have to pay taxes on tips. What's going to happen? I think Uber and Lyft will find a way to lower our fares to basically even out what we would make in less taxes to make sure we're kind of staying equal. I think they're that nefarious. I really do. And if that's the case, let's say instead of getting a $4 minimum fare, you make $3.75. I think the rule of thirds, people that tip and versus people that don't tip, it's going to be the same. In the end, we're going to make less money because passengers will be like, hey, you're making more money in tips. And so whatever, it's just not going to work out to our favor. So yes, I love less taxes. That's always a good thing. But the question is, will I make more money? I just really don't think that's going to be the case. The con to having this idea, other than the idea of whether we're going to make more or less money, is I think it's a bad idea to have such a complex tax system. Right now, just filing taxes is way complicated, and adding another loophole, because that's what it is, for service workers, hospitality workers, or whatever, just makes the tax system that much more complicated. We need to simplify taxes. In a perfect world, we'd all be paying about the same percentage in a very simple tax form that we fill out on one piece of paper. So I'm not a big fan of this idea of people petitioning the government, or the government going to the people to either win votes, right? Or petitioning the government to get special favors. It's a bad system. That's a bad system of government. So this overly complex tax system where people don't know how to navigate it properly, have to hire professionals just to pay our taxes. And then on top of it, it's like people going to the government saying, give us a favor or we're not going to vote for you or whatever. That's really bad. I think that's a very common thing in the Uber and Lyft world too. Look at how many drivers are organizing to then go to the government and say, we want to guarantee how much we're going to make per ride or per minute, per mile. We want benefits or whatever else it is. And in some states, that actually gets done. You know, here in the state of New York, even though it didn't go from drivers petitioning the government, there was a lawsuit, and part of that lawsuit they decided to give drivers here a minimum wage, and we get benefits. I can tell you that it has not made me that much more wealthier. I make about the exact same, if not a little bit less, than when that lawsuit was settled. I think that's going to be the same thing that's true with the drivers of Minnesota. On a very simple, basic economic scale, a guaranteed wage means more drivers will then enter the market. And it's the supply of drivers that keeps our fares really low. There's less rides for us. So finding a minimum wage or some sort of solution like that is just not going to work out in our favor in the long run. But on a big picture scale, do we really want every single worker classification, every single job going to the government saying, we need this special favor and we need this special favor? Imagine if waitresses went to the government, and then Uber drivers, and then doctors, and then, I don't know, gas station workers, and everybody had a special treatment from the government. So every single person, there was a law written specifically for their profession. Things have to be that complicated? No, they don't. This is not to justify Uber and Lyft and the way they treat drivers, of course. And there's a role for government too. I'm not saying government doesn't have a role. I think things just need to be simpler. So thinking about this tax, yeah, would I like $410? Yes. The things I do for $1 tip, yeah, so $410, I would gladly pay less taxes if I could to get $410 more dollars. But as a citizen of this United States, I really think it'd be better off, we'd all be better off with a simpler tax form, a simpler way to file taxes. And I think we'd all be better off if, instead of going to the government to solve our own individual unique problems, we found ways to solve our own problems as individuals. If Uber doesn't pay me what I think I'm worth, I just don't have to drive. There's something else I can go do. Let's think. I'm pretty sure that means a lot of people are going to get really, upset by this, and there are a lot of you that are probably going to agree with me. My desire here is not to create controversy, just to kind of give you my thoughts and opinion. What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? As you can see, go back and look. I respond to the comments. Well, let's engage in a conversation. Is it good for rideshare drivers to have less in taxes through tips? How do you feel about petitioning the government to solve financial problems? How much we make and earn? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. I am cheering for you, all 2,000 plus of you. Thank you so much for subscribing. Please be well, be safe, and I hope you thrive.